There you are now. Welcome back to the workshop. So we've got a little bit of a different video for you today. This is something that I've been wanting to do for a while, and now we have a new piece of camera equipment. We can do it finally in the shop. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you all the way around my workshop and show you all the various different projects I'm working on, tell you where I'm at with them and where they're going. We're going to try and get this video to happen every couple of weeks. Probably once a month. That's what we'll aim for anyway, and see how it goes. Let me know in the comments down below if you like this style of video and it's something that you want me to keep doing or not. So the first project in the workshop is this Riley Elf. This was brought to me by a customer a couple of months ago, and it needed a full body restoration. It has rust on every single corner and in every single crevice. The quarter panel was one of the very first jobs, and the customer is absolutely adamant that he wants to keep the original metal as much as possible throughout this car, because it is quite an original car. So the customer gets what the customer wants here, and I put a couple of repair panels in. After a few minutes working on the wing, I realized that there was a hidden mystery in this car, and that hidden mystery was this big blooming crease all the way along the quarter panel. Now, I've done a good bit of metal work on it, and I've got most of the crease out. There was over 2 inches of filler in this quarter panel. So the last time the car had a crash or an accident and this crease was put in there, the body shop that worked on it just put filler on it and painted over it. So you can see a couple of repair sections that I've had to put in here in the wheel arch. I've also had to completely rebuild the rear subframe mount here. The last person that put a sill on put an oversill on the car, and the water got up into the rear subframe mount and completely rotted out this whole section. So we put a new piece in here. I don't know if you can see in here at the wing. You see this little piece in here? I had to cut almost an inch out in here to bring this wing or this quarter panel back out to space. So a little piece of metal will have to be made up there and put in. That's bringing the shape back into the panel. It's had an inner and outer sill on this side. So new outer sill there and a new inner sill. I've had to do a lot of construction work up here on the A pillar. You can probably just see some of the joints there that I've had to work on. So the actual only original piece of metal on this A-pillar is actually this outer section here, which takes the door stop bracket and is the shape for the door closure panel. Everything else has been replaced. So this piece in here, the inside of the fletch panel, the inside of the fletch panel here as well. So completely reconstructed that and then put this original bit of steel back on here. Had to do a bit of construction here on the front of the car. A little small panel had to be made up, or a patch panel I suppose had to be made up for here on the inner wing, where the original front valance went on. It rotted out this extra section here, so I just fabricated up a small panel, welded it in there. Had to do a good bit of work here on the scuttle as well. Again, if it was my own car, I'd probably replace the scuttle, but this is a customer's car, and as I said, he's adamant about retaining panels, so had to do a bit of refabrication. But I'm very happy I got the shape back here in the scuttle, and it's good. Now, move on to this little jigsaw puzzle sitting up here on the front of the car. And it's been sitting here for a while. So when the customer bought panels for this car, he couldn't get a Riley front panel. So what he bought for me was this, a normal mini front panel, and then this Riley weld-in extra piece. It's been sitting here for probably 2 months now, because I have not worked up the courage or the enthusiasm to cut into this and get it done. But maybe now, with the little lockdown we have here for the next couple of weeks, I'll be enthused to get back at this panel and try and get a shape on it. It's what's holding me back from finishing the front of the car, so I suppose I really do need to just get it done. If you want to have a look through the door here, I'll show you where I'm at with the passenger side of the car. So again, you know, you're going to hear me saying this every single time, but if it was my own car, I'd have actually replaced the floors. But given the customer wanted to retain as much metal as possible, he had me put repair panels in here. So I've put an inner sill in here. It's just tacked in at the moment because I'm still trying to get all the shapes and get the alignment in the body shell the way I want it. So it's just tacked into place. But as you see, I have the door in here, and I'm really happy with the fit of the door. A lot of work had to be done to get this panel in. I had to take out the cross member. You can see where I've cut the cross member here to remove a section of it. I would have had to do that over the far side as well when I repaired the inner wing on that side. That actually had a complete new floor section put in over there. You can just see where it was welded in around the tunnel and that. So back over to this section, I had to replace the fletch panel here. The original panel there in the A post, but there was another panel replaced on the outside. The only one that was good on that side, but not good on this side. If you look back here to the rear wheel arch, you'll see there's a lot of ongoing work happening here. So like the far side, the rear subframe mount was absolutely rotten out of the car. It had rotten up into the pocket that goes here and had badly rotted out all the panels here. So original, well, when I say original, a replacement pattern panel for this inner sill. Had to do a bit of fabrication here, replace a little piece in here with the rear wheel arch, put in a new rear subframe mount, and have the whole lot in and lined up. So the last job to do on that is fill this gaping hole with a quarter panel repair piece. I have that piece there, just need to cut it out and weld it in. If we go around the back of the car now, I'll show you some of the last rust that we have to deal with. We have a couple of sections here. I'm just going to show you what we had versus, or what we have versus what we had. So you can see here I've had to fabricate a panel here and weld it in. So this had rotted down where the bumper mount goes on. So I fabricated up that panel myself and put it in there. You can get those repair panels, but they really don't fit very well. So over this side you can see I have work to do. You can see if I poke my screwdriver through here, the panel has completely rotten all in down here. So that's the same as the other side. I'm going to have to fabricate up a panel and weld it in there. If you look across the back of the boot closure here, you can see it's rotten right through here as well. So that whole panel is going to have to get cut out and a new panel put in there. Honestly, I'm going to actually fabricate that panel myself. You can get them, they're easy to get, but they're a pattern part and the pattern is a nightmare. I fitted one of these about 3 years ago to another Riley I was restoring, and it probably cost me about 3 times as much work as to actually just make that panel or that repair section. So in this car, I'm just going to remake that repair section myself. Interestingly, this car is about close to getting to a roll and shell. We really have to just turn it over and do some seam sealing and then a coat of paint. We're going to do an epoxy primer and then a coat of paint on the bottom of it, and then it'll be ready to go on its wheels, which is a good thing because its subframe just arrived back from powder coat. So it is a hydroelastic car, so it's a hydroelastic front subframe, and the car is going back as a proper hydro car. So the subframe came from a local blasting shop that I use. He does vapor blasting, and he also powder coated that subframe for me. Nice big box of bits from Mini Spares. We've got brake lines and all new suspension components to go on that subframe, so you'll see that getting built up over the next couple of weeks as well. We'll move on now and I'll show you the next car in the workshop. Okay, the next car in the shop is this absolutely stunning Clubman Estate. The customer brought me this car back in the early part of last year to commission it for him. It had been built in another shop and needed some commissioning work done, so we got it on the road for him. This customer, I absolutely love working for him because he builds his cars to the highest spec. The work that he's done on this car is fantastic. Another reason I absolutely love this customer is he brings me boxes full of shiny parts to fit and makes really deadly lists. So he produces these really cool lists for me that tell me exactly what he wants done, where he wants it, and when. I absolutely love that in a customer. So let's show you some of the problems with this car that needs to get sorted. So if we go around here to the engine bay, you can see that it is a beautiful engine bay adorned with this lovely shade of brown. So the reason for this brown is attributed to this water pump. So we can see a nice shiny new style water pump pulley on here and all the brown around it. What has happened was the fan belt was over tensioned, put too much pressure on the water pump bearing. It failed and it in turn ate the seal. Water pump bearing failed, seal failed, and the engine lost all of its water. Luckily the customer caught it in time and hasn't damaged the engine. So that's an easy enough fix. New water pump and put the belt back on properly. I did do a bit of work in this engine bay. Over here you can see it has a pretty trick brake setup. So what I fitted here is an AP Race master cylinder and a Willwood pressure controller, or brake bias valve as it might be called, and a remote reservoir. So when this car came to me first, it had a modern 90s style servo brake system on it, which really has no place on this car. And the reason for that is the customer has fitted top class brakes. It has KAD 4-pot vented discs at the front, and it has a disc brake conversion at the back. The requirement of a brake setup like that is a really good brake master cylinder with high volume. The AP Race master cylinder that we've fitted at 3/4 of an inch is ideal for it. The servo type system, one, doesn't have the brake bias control in it, and two, just doesn't have the volume for those brakes. So let's have a look at the front of the car where we're doing a little bit of work. So another problem that came from the customer doing test driving was he started getting brake fade, and then ultimately the brakes went completely. I have found out what that is. What had happened was there's a very poor quality brake pad in here. These calipers have huge power, and we're squeezing the caliper, and the caliper, the pad was completely overheating. That heat ended up into the caliper and boiled the brake fluid in the caliper. So we're going to sort that out really easily. We're going to get a set of carbon rain brake pads, and we're going to use the carbon rain brake fluid. I've used that on my race car now for a couple of years, and that is such a winning setup. No matter how hard you drive it, no matter how much you press the brakes, we've neither had brake fluid boil or pads overheating. If we move on here to the back of the car, we've a good bit of work to do here. So if we take a look at the rear setup here, you can see these are the wonderful KAD disc brake setup that's on the car. Now, when this came to me in the summertime, it had this anti-roll bar fitted in a really unusual manner, and it was causing an unusual problem. The anti-roll bar arm was swung down this way, and you can see there's an unusual hole drilled here at a different position. I think that the people that fitted this, what they were trying to do was reduce the tension in the anti-roll bar by reducing the leverage ratio, but it had an unfortunate side effect. What happened was, with the anti-roll bar down here and the link arm down the bottom, it was coming in contact when the suspension compressed with the handbrake control mechanism. What that led to basically was, when you accelerated hard in the car, it squatted down on its suspension and partially engaged the handbrake. The result in that was that these discs would come back absolutely glowing red hot. The customer got in contact with KAD. He's ordered me up a new set of rear discs, a new set of pads, and we're going to take this arm off and weld up where this hole was drilled to repair that job and put it back properly. The customer's fitting some more interesting trick components to the car. On my request, he got in contact with NDAF Owens and got me a remote gear linkage setup. NDAF builds these for his racing cars, and I absolutely love them. They are the business. It puts the gear lever in a much nicer position, mounts it in a much more stable way, and gives it a lovely feel when you drive the car. So basically, this steel framework gets welded to the tunnel of the car, and then this new gear linkage control box is bolted to that, and we make a linkage between this and the gearbox. What that basically does is it rises up your gear lever and securely mounts it to give you a much nicer gear change and a much nicer gear stick position. You can literally get from the gear lever to the steering wheel in one movement. Really nice and neat. So really looking forward to getting that installed in this car and seeing how that is. We might even do a little driving video at some stage and show you what that's like in the car. After that, there is loads more stuff to do. As I said, the customer has a big long list for me, so in the next couple of uncuts you'll get to see how this car progresses and the different things we're going to do. We have a full set of new shock absorbers to put on the car. We have high visibility brake lights to go on the car. We have an electric fan and loads of other bits and bobs of nice modifications. So follow back to the next couple of uncuts and see how this car progresses. Last car in the shop. So this is a race car belonging to a customer of mine. I met him at a test day last year and he gave me a look at the car. So the story with this car is he bought it as an unfinished project and basically did the few finishing bits to it himself, but it was mostly already built. He gave me a look at the car and asked me what did I think, and we kind of had a few conversations back and forward, and I said it needs a little bit of work. So the heel of the hunt, he dropped it up to me about a month ago now, and it's in the shop now and we're going to do a few jobs on it. So some of the stuff that really annoyed me about it, if you look in here through the back window, you'll see the customer fitted 6-point harnesses to the car, but they're bolted to the back parcel shelf, which is a no-no in my book. We're going to fit a proper harness bar to the roll cage. Other stuff that was in it, it had Sparco seats. The customer struggled at the time to get seats that he liked and wanted to put 2 seats in it because him and his dad went out in the car a bit. But now he's trying to build this car more race orientated. So we've ordered up a really nice Sparco full wraparound seat with head restraints, so it'll be much safer for him and it'll be much more comfortable driving position. So I look forward to showing you the seat rails we're going to fit into the car and how we get the seat positioned a bit better. We're also going to fit a gear linkage very similar to the one you've seen for the black Clubman Estate. It's a slightly different version. It's one I do myself, but same kind of idea. You'll see that in a couple of episodes time on the channel. The engine is already out of the car. I stripped the engine out of it a couple of weeks ago and brought it into the shop. He didn't build the engine or the gearbox. It was already all built. It was just needed to be put in the car. I wasn't happy with the way the engine was running and stripped it out. So I'll show you that in a couple of minutes. It's in the engine shop now and we have it stripped down. It has a few problems. After that, we want to do a bit of adjustment to the suspension. I'm going to fit an anti-roll bar to the car. It doesn't have any anti-roll bar. We're going to change the wheels and we're going to try and get the car sitting a bit lower because it's currently sitting in, I suppose, what you would call rally spec, whereas we want it to get down to a more track orientated car. After that, I think we might go into the engine shop now and I'll give you a look at some of the projects that are on the go in there. Maybe before we go in the engine shop, we'll show you the shop mascots. So anybody who knows me knows I'm a dog fanatic, and we have a couple of our Siberian Huskies. So we've got Kai here on the outside, we've got Hachi, his brother Arkham, and Shadow. Say hello, guys. Alrighty, stick your heads in. Mind your heads. Alrighty, come on, we go in the engine shop and see what's going on in here. So what we have here is a door belonging to a customer of mine, and it is from a 1931 Rosengart, which was a French-built cart. If anybody is interested in this, I really do urge you to Google Rosengart. He was a bit of a kind of a nut, but an absolutely extraordinary engineer, and I'm actually delighted to have the privilege of working on some of these bits for this customer. So this is a door he brought to me, and it is suffering with a serious case of woodworm. Yes, you heard me right, wood. This car, being a 1930s car, has wood and steel together. So over the next couple of weeks or months, I'll be working on this door, getting it back together for him. I've already ordered the ash to replace this. I don't know how COVID is going to affect that, but hopefully we'll be able to get the ash and we'll get to start working on rebuilding this door frame. So that's a really interesting project that I'm really excited about. You can see we've a couple of engines in the engine stand here. So this engine here is the engine from that race car that we were just looking at. The engine has been stripped. It has a few pretty serious problems. The gearbox has some problems with some stripped gears and some problems with the gears. If you go on my Instagram, you'll probably see some of the pictures I've put up of that. The cylinder head is over here in the cylinder head shop. If you want to come over here, I'll give you a look. I've done a good bit of work on this cylinder head already. When it was on the car, it was smoking quite badly, and the result of that was a few problems. One was the valve guides had been reamed way oversized, so the valves were flopping around inside there. There was problems with the valve seats on every single one of the valve seats, so I've recut all those valve seats. There was also some problems in the ports of the cylinder head. Somebody had tried to fit a much bigger inlet valve, but hadn't done any port blending or any matching in the ports. So there was big, horrible steps inside the ports. So I've gone in there and removed all the steps in the ports and blended the valve seats properly. Again, I have some pictures of that over on my Instagram if you're interested in it. So the last thing to do on this cylinder head is to give it a skim and to put some new valve stem oil seals, some new valve springs, and that head will be good to go back on the motor. Other problems that motor had, it has big problems with the gearbox. There was a situation occurred with the gearbox where the teeth on the lay shaft first gear and the main shaft first gear were root butting. So the teeth were meshing too deeply, and the roots of the gear teeth were butting against each other. What that causes is the gears to ride apart from each other, shear the oil and damage the gears. So I have to do a bit of machine work on the lay shaft just to get rid of that root butting and rebuild the gearbox with a few new bearings, balk rings, and I think it might need a selector bronze bushing replaced as well. So that will get that engine pretty much back together. It's going to need a new camshaft as well. Whoever built the motor reused old cam followers. I have no idea why people do this. Cam followers are so blooming reasonable to buy them, but unfortunately they reused them, and the result is it has wiped the lobes off the cam. So we've ordered a new camshaft for that, and that should be in shortly. So we'll replace that, retime it. Hiding underneath here is the engine from my race car. You'll have seen this first part of putting this together, and yes, we still have more to do on that. That's another video coming down the road when we finish that short motor. Hiding over here on the floor, I'm going to see if I can get in at it to show you, behind this camera rig, just move that out of your way, is the beautiful engine from that same said Rosengart. Amazing. This engine was built in 1930 and it has an aluminium sump, cast iron engine block and an aluminium cylinder head. This is an absolute little work of art in my book. I'm really impressed with it, and I'm chuffed that the customer has given me the job of rebuilding this engine for the Rosengart that he is restoring. One of the big problems to be sorted out on this engine is there's a massive crack in the cylinder head, so that is going to be a bit of a machining operation to get that. So you can follow me along over the next few weeks and months as we repair the cylinder head. We strip this engine, and maybe on the next uncut I'll have it stripped a bit more for you, and you can get to see some of the internals. It's a 2-bearing crank engine, which is really odd. Even the Mini was synonymous with being a 3-bearing crank, and people thought that was very little, and this one only has 2, and they're on rollers, which is really interesting. So I'm looking forward to getting that torn down and giving you guys a look at some pre-Mini technology. And yeah, from time to time we get lucky in the shop here and get to do some other cars than just Minis. I hope guys you enjoyed that little walk around the shop and got to see some of the projects I'm working on. Bear in mind, I am a one-man band here, so I get to do a little bit on projects all the time. I'm really very lucky to have wonderful customers who are so supportive of my business and are so supportive of how long it takes me to get through all these projects. So without them, I couldn't do what I do and bring you the content I do. So a big shout out to all my customers. And for anybody who's waiting to get a project into my workshop, I'm sorry it takes so long, but as you can see, we have a lot of stuff that we get working on here every day to try and keep it going. Next video will be out in a couple of days time. We'll be looking at another project and we'll bring you in a little bit closer. After that, guys, all I can say is please don't forget to like, share and subscribe. If you're enjoying this content, like I said earlier on, maybe let me know in the comments down below. Let me know whether it's something that you'd like, and we'll make more of this sort of uncut style vlog video. We'll, as I said, try and do maybe one a month and just show you the progression of the projects. It's just so hard to make videos on every single one of the jobs that I do, because obviously you get it takes a bit of time to make these. So maybe this uncut style shooting will get to give you guys a bit more of a look at what it is we do here. After that, see you on the next one.